Hello and welcome to The Last Standee, a board game podcast coming to you from 3 exciting countries across Europe. So I'm joined here today by Cara,
Hello.
Ben,
Hey, hey.
and I will be your host, Alexis. And today is a special tabletop RPG episode. Fen and I will both discuss two Mothership game modules, while Cara will talk to us about Fabula Ultima. Um, Fen will be talking to us about the In Other Waters module slash campaign for the game Mothership, as I mentioned, and I will be talking about the Mega Dungeon Gradient Descent. But first, let's see how everyone is doing in the Standee catch-up. So, how have you been doing, Cara? It's been quite a while.
Yeah, I tried to remember when it was the last time I joined. Things are going. The heat wave that got us all sweating last week is finally over. So what I've been up to, a lot of work. Now it's first summer break in the new state. Time to relax. And I've got my ADHD diagnosis and medication, which is awesome.
That is wonderful, yeah.
It's so amazing. And generally, my health issues have mostly subsided. I've actually not called in sick for 2 months now. So that's pretty cool. And I have a partner now who's right now downstairs on the sofa resting. And that's pretty cool.
Sounds like a lot of really good news on your end.
Yeah, definitely. It's a little sad that I, for several weeks now, actually haven't gotten around to playing any board games. I think like 2 weeks ago or so, I played Undergrove on Board Game Arena with my best friend. But that's mostly it. I just didn't have the time or energy. But I'm currently very much rekindling my love for tabletop RPGs, partly due to last week in school we had Projects Week, and the youth center close to the school offered 2 projects, and one of them was a tabletop RPG group. And I had the oversight, so I didn't participate, but I was basically there and did organizational things for them. And so I got to talk a lot with the people from the youth center, and at the last day of the Projects Week, I also got to talk with some students about tabletop RPGs, and we'll see where this goes. But I extended my feelers, and maybe I will actually volunteer at the youth center and DM some rounds for students, kids, teenagers. So who knows?
All kind of good news. I am really happy for you for the diagnostic and the partner, and currently work going well. So
yeah, congratulations. And nice weather, finally.
Yeah.
Yes.
That has been a highlight of the past couple of days, because it's been insanely warm here too, and our houses are not prepared for it.
It's been the opposite here, because we've just had like 19 degrees Celsius maximum, and clear nights. But today it's only 17 degrees outside, but it's 81% humidity, which makes it feel like a nightmare. Yeah. It's due to rain.
I have a Swedish friend that told me that she's finding 19 degrees to be almost unbearable. And she used to live in Arizona, so
Yeah. No, but it's 19 degrees, 83% humidity. Yeah.
that sounds horrible.
51% chance of rain, and then tomorrow it's the same again, which could be fun. But yeah. So I may as well jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, before we get stuck talking about the weather.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just one of those things that is like every year it's going to be, and we've had unprecedented weather again.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that my parents' generation did this to the planet. It's fantastic.
Yay.
Yes,
It's great.
it is great. Yeah. Well, yes, I'll take over. So. On a sort of personal front, things have been like pretty fine. I've been dealing with RSI in my right arm. Too much digital playing of board games. Too much writing. So it's the worst part is it goes crunch. That's the bit that's like. So that's been dialed me back on a lot of things I wanted to be able to do. I've had to. Luckily, I'm ambidextrous, so it hasn't slowed me down too much, but it's very easy to forget and reach out with my injured arm and be like, no, that was dumb. I've made it worse. So, on the board game front, I am waiting. So for Unstoppable to arrive tomorrow. That's a deck building solo game that's like very well regarded, and to put aside the kayfabe, break the kayfabe or whatever, in respect to Star Wars and Star Trek, I've actually got Star Trek Captain's Chair arriving as well, which I'm kind of a bit excited about. It's supposed to be very, very good. And my dad is a gigantic Star Trek fan. Like, it was constantly on multiple times a week when I was growing up. So I'll be interested to see what that's like, and I've heard very good things. And also, apparently, I've got the Nemesis Retribution will be on its way soon, along with Earthbound Rangers. So that's all quite exciting. Nemesis represents the last Awakened Realms thing I'm going to get, though. I think they're far too inconsistent. They do good work on their world building, but I think their mechanics always end up being just a bit too grindy, with Nemesis being an exception to that, because it's not a campaign game.
So is Earthbound Rangers shipping finally?
I've had the hey, we've got your status changed, so it's preparing for shipping. So and they've said Europe is shipping. So yeah, my order's now locked, and I've got the if you want to change your shipping address, please contact. So that'd be nice. It'll fulfill finally my first backing, because they decided to delay completing the first Kickstarter as a part of this second one, which I'm not a big fan of, but I will overlook it given a lot of other things they're trying to do and doing. And I'm also very excited to see what MJ has brought to this since she's come across the Markham Horror. That should be really, really fun. So that's my things. Board games coming, and a lot of the rest I'll talk about. Although there's one final thing which I think is interesting, which is Magic the Gathering's Commander format has had its first major rules change in a long time. They are going to be allowing vehicles that are legendary to be commanders, which is, I don't know why they never allowed it before, but apparently it just seems to be because this new set that's coming up is basically sci-fi. It's got spaceships in it, and they wanted the spaceships to be allowed to be commanders, so they're allowing vehicles, which I think is cool. I think they should go as far as to let any card that has like the ability to turn into a creature or has a creature on its back or whatever to be a commander, because what the hell, let people have fun. But yeah, anyway, Alexi,
I'm very proud of you, by the way.
Why?
You mentioned a Star Trek game without making any jokes mixing up the franchise.
Yeah, I said I'd break kayfabe for it and stop playing a character and actually yeah. I mean, it's you get to play as Jean-Luc Picard and Captain Kirk and Benjamin Sisko and all that. I'm excited about it. I like the original Star Trek stuff. I grew up watching some of the reruns that they would put on, and I always liked how it portrayed a world that was different compared to many other sci-fi stuff, which I think is, you know, something more structured, more bureaucratic, more kind of hopeful and positive, and less about, oh, these guys are different, let's punch them, and more of let's try and understand them and everything. So yeah. Don't expect that to last. I'm sure at some point I'll get them mixed up again. But I don't know. Yeah, it's the new Star Trek stuff for me. Like the J.J. Abrams stuff sucked. I really didn't like it. I felt like it was. I like Chris Pine. He's fantastic. In fact, he's amazing in the D&D movie. We rewatched that recently, and that was great. It's even better when you go in and you think about it of like, not only is this a D&D movie, this is a D&D movie about characters being played by people. So we're just seeing the role playing unfold, but these are player characters, and so there's moments where they're just clearly having player discussions, and those player moments are, and I was like, I picked up on that on the second watch through, and I was like, that's brilliant that there's this whole extra meta layer of this. It's a real shame they're not going to have any more, because I think it's just brilliant. It's just an amazingly well done movie. Not even, you know, as far as D&D goes, just in general, it's superb.
Yeah,
It did quite well though, right?
Yeah, but not well enough for Hasbro to greenlight anymore, even though I would love to see those characters back, because they were really fun.
It's kind of strange that we managed to have 20 different Transformers movie, but the D&D franchise is not getting any.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't stick a big pair of wrecking balls between a robot's legs and go tee-hee and point at them like Michael Bay likes to do, can you? You can't do that.
I mean, I'm sure that someone with a lot of ingenuity can bring something like that to D&D.
I mean, I guess you could have a huge animated golem fall over us because someone's hit it in its rocks. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
anyway,
the only limit is the imagination.
Yeah. Let's get on with you, Alexi, because
Yes.
I'm going to talk lots otherwise.
I've been doing quite well recently. After the last episode where we talked about Nekojima, I grabbed it and I've been playing it quite a lot with my girlfriends and with my sister. It is quite a fun game. I really like just the cooperative aspect of it. There's a versus mode, but the game is all about placing those very ill-balanced wooden beam together to make sure that nothing touches and that everything is that no one is going to make everything fall. And I think that as a cooperative game, it is quite brilliant. I've been having a lot of fun with that, and I've also recently started playing again the Aeon Trespass Odyssey, the start of the first campaign, and I've been really enjoying my time with everything mechanical, but I've been finding the story moments to be really dragging along the more I played, because I don't think that the writing is that good, and the more I spend time with the writing, the more I'm just like, well, I just want to get into the next combat phase, or like do something with the gameplay rather than just have to read 5 paragraphs of quite adolescent text. But I've been spending a pretty good time with it.
I wasn't super into the writing the first playthrough. Headspace I was in. So this time I've been going through and actually like paying attention to the writing. I will say I think that Cycle 1's story is probably the weakest of all of the stories, even though I think Crate is amazing. Like the map is amazing. It's so good. So I do think the writing gets stronger and stronger and stronger. I liked it from the start more than I think you did, as it seems. Some of the individual adventures are great, but I do think, like, I've been gathering the tools to bring an adventure to a completion. That's what I've been like specifically trying to do when playing. It's made a lot more satisfying narratively, because you get the alpha and the omega of the adventures set up and pay off really well. And my second playthrough, I did a load of stuff extra, and it changed the way the ending of the story was. And I was like, oh, it's this and this. Oh my, that's why didn't I wish I'd, it was so good compared to the first time through, where I was a bit kind of like, I know mostly what's going on, but I'm a little bewildered.
I think that there's also the fact that I've already played half of the campaign, and so I kind of remember some of that, and it's a bit long to drudge through. But I can imagine that it's when it pays off, I would appreciate it more also.
Yeah.
So I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, keep us updated, and I'd say in particular, Cycle 2 gets a lot of praise.
Yeah, that's what
I'm
I've
just
heard.
I'm just reaching towards the end of that, and I'll say mechanically, you know how like there's that point within Cycle 1 where you're really flagging and struggling. It's like a deliberate beat. Yeah, campaign Cycle 2 just goes, hey, guess what? You thought that was bad? Here we go. And it just beats the heck out of you. I spent so much time struggling to keep my crew and hull at one to not lose.
That is...
Yeah, it's different, and I don't want to go into details of the story. I think the story is... It's not my favourite story in all the cycles I've played so far. I like Cycle 3 story most. But it's definitely, it's intense, and it's got a lot to say.
All right. That's quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to try Cycle 2 then. But I think that it's probably a good time to move on to our topics for today. Cara, do you feel like starting, or should I start with Mothership?
You start.
Yeah, let's do a Mothership sandwich.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about Mothership a few times in the past, but I'll give a quick overview of the game for the people that haven't listened to an episode that I'll need to look into and ad-lib that to the text. It is a space sci-fi RPG inspired by Alien and Event Horizon. It has a very sort of industrial horror sci-fi kind of vibe. And the rules are meant to make players feel pretty weak against any kind of inhuman threat. You can fight androids or monsters, but monsters are usually going to be a bit harder to go against, while humans and anything that is human-sized is something that you should be able to deal with. There's a lot of different campaigns. Some of them are inspired by kind of Starship Troopers. Others take a very different approach and have something that is more grounded. A lot of stuff you just use horror tropes and kind of like curses and stuff like that. It's quite interesting. The game was written to have a lot of breadth on what it could do, and today we'll be talking about two very different versions of the game, with a mega dungeon that I will be talking about, and then Fan is going to talk about probably the modules that changes the game the most so far, and maybe a little bit too much, but that's something that Fan will be talking about. The way that the game functions is that it uses percentile dice for every roll, while doubles do criticals. Which is a pretty common dice system. The most interesting aspects are probably the stress mechanics that builds up as you experience dangerous situations and forces player to have a sort of rest and relaxation when possible, to try to cool down their stress so it doesn't explode while they're in a tense situation. There's also the wound system. Every player and creature has thresholds on the damage that they take, and whenever they take enough damage, they get a wound, which is going to be a more dangerous sort of coalescence of the damage that they took. That depends on what sort of damage type they experience. So, for example, if they got if the damage was fire, they're going to get different degrees of burnt, or they're going to have their limbs that are charred, or it can be gore where they are exploded or mangled. It's quite brutal and meant to make the character feel squishy. And the game has also quite a lot of fun rules on the spaceship combats that end up being slow and operate on very long distances in a sort of quote unquote realistic depiction of space battles. It feels more like space submarines than dogfights in space, which I usually quite like. So, Gradient Descent is a mega dungeon for Mothership, and it's one of the best mega dungeons that I've read in quite a while. The book is written by Luke Gehring and published by the Mothership teams at Tuesday Night Games.
So, for listeners, what's a mega dungeon?
So, a mega dungeon is a dungeon, but mega. It's usually kind of taking the idea, the classical idea of a Dungeon and Dragon dungeons, where you explore a few floors of a dungeon, and then at the end there's a big bad guy. Where a mega dungeon takes an entire book where the dungeon is multiple pages of different levels and traps and monsters and things that you can explore. And the idea is that it should more or less suffice itself to be there for multiple games, maybe sometimes to be a campaign-wide thing that players can explore. They should be able to go there, explore a few levels, come back, or camp in there. It's something that takes quite a lot of time and has a lot of meat onto it, which is something that's not done too much these days. It was quite popular in the 80s and 90s with a few very popular ones that I cannot remember the name of at the moment.
Tomb of Horrors?
Tomb of Horrors, yeah.
That's probably the most notorious one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one where there's 3 entrances and 2 of them are just time for new characters.
Yes. Usually the mega dungeons have quite a legacy of being player sheet grinders. They will go through characters quite quickly. This one is not as dangerous as others of other mega dungeons, but if you are playing Mothership, you know that making new character is something that you will have to do every now and then. So this is definitely a dungeon where you can lose a few characters as you explore and uncover all of its secrets. So the idea of it is that Gradient Descent offers us this kind of massive abandoned Android facility that for some reason has been cordoned off behind a blockade. The facility is known as the Deep, and players are meant to be lured into it by some strange and mysterious artifacts that have been brought back past the blockade by brave smugglers. The module draws primarily inspirations from Blade Runner, System Shock, and the video game / movie Stoker / the book Roadside Picnic, I believe is the name of the original book. The idea is that there's this place that is out of access for most people and very dangerous, but that somehow generates those very interesting and alluring artifacts then that have some powers and some abilities that people are ready to pay quite a lot of money for. It introduces a new mechanics called the Bend that slowly makes the player question the player characters question their own humanity as they explore the facility deeper. It's sort of inspired by deep diving, the deep diving aspect, the Bend. You know, when the more time you spend with compressed air, you'll slowly go kind of loopy because of the lack of proper oxygen to your brain. One of the really cool aspects of the module are the maps that are drawn like electric diagrams that are extremely easy to read. And given the size of the dungeon, it's super nice for the GM to be able to quickly look at them, see what's coming, what the player are going to experience, and also for the GM to be just able to draw the map onto a piece of paper if they want to give some information. I think this is quite smart in the way that they do it, and I really hope that other Mothership dungeons are going to take inspiration from that, because that is quite cool. So the deep is ruled by an artificial intelligence that is called actually an artificial omniscience called Monarch. That is a sort of AI that, well, as many sci-fi AI do, kind of went mad and too smart for its own good. And the AI is not a especially murderous one, but it's one that is supposed to be a sort of different and alien intelligence. The GM is supposed to play it using some specific rules of behaviors to make it feel strange to interact with. It doesn't have just one goal, and it has layers and plans upon layers and plans. And so the way that it interacts with the players is quite interesting. It's not just going to try to kill them, but it's trying to get something from the players, and sometimes to actually attack them if they are doing something that it doesn't want. But the AI is quite interesting to play with. There's a lot of mechanics that would be a little bit spoilery to talk about, but the facility itself was an Android manufacturing facility, and so it constantly produces those very human-like entities that have sort of a mind of their own, because they are part of the larger Monarch and intelligence. So they all have their own sort of maybe sentience, but maybe not. And this is quite interesting to explore. I personally think that this is a really, really good mega dungeon, because there's plenty of NPCs living into the facility itself, but there's also a sort of relay floating not too far away from the facility, where players that do those diving expedition into the deep live in and sort of exchange tips and information and maybe trade, ready to go back into the deep. The game has a lot of meat. You can really just slot that into a larger campaign extremely easily, where you have your players visiting there to just gather one artifact or help someone or find something into the dungeon, make them experience a little bit of the dungeon itself, and then spit them out. Or you could have your players just spend weeks exploring this facility again and again and uncovering a ton of secrets that are hidden everywhere. I would recommend it because it's a dungeon that was really built to be played. It's the writers have spent a lot of time just describing every room in just a few words, a few specific elements that are going to be interesting and important for the players. And so if you are just running this, it's better obviously to know the dungeon and to have a general idea of where the players are going to go. But you can just like pick a room, you see which room number it is, which gives you the page that it's going to be in. You look at the page, you can scan all of the information of the room that they're in about 5 seconds and guide the players. And so long as you are decent at improvising, it's actually very fun and easy to run. Yeah, so Gradient Descent, really big recommendation if you play Mothership. If you like Mothership, this is a great example of what Mothership can do. All right, that's about it for Gradient Descent. Have you had any experience with a mega dungeon, either of you?
I'm
No.
I'm an eternal lifetime GM since I was 12. So, like nothing. I've very rarely been a player. I'm a problematic player. But yes, specifically the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Doomstones campaign, which technically isn't one single mega dungeon. It's like 5 mega dungeons, and that's the main experience I've had. I've also watched a little bit of Delicious in Dungeon, which clearly
Yes.
has its own mega dungeon. It wasn't really my thing. It was fun, but I kind of stopped watching it. Beyond that, I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure the answer is absolutely yes. But more often I encounter them in like board game formats, like Blackstone Fortress. That's clearly a sci-fi mega dungeon. So
Yep.
mostly Doomstones, which has like 4 or 5 mega dungeons, and it never felt right for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. And then when I read more into what was going on, and it's like, hey, this is actually it was a D&D campaign that they converted into Warhammer. It's like, that's
That
why
makes
it doesn't
sense.
feel. Oh yeah, sorry. This is the real one. The big mega dungeon is Castle Drachenfels from Warhammer.
Yes.
Absolutely insane meat grinder nuttiness of like anything could possibly kill you at any moment, because Drachenfels is he's just one of the best villains of all time. Really, it's like, who is this guy? What is he? Is he a servant of chaos? No, he's just a guy who doesn't die. He comes back. He always comes back. His title's Constant Drachenfels, and his whole castle blinks around the Grey Mountains and is full of all sorts of delights and horrors. And it is just like, have your player characters reached the end of their career and your players don't want to retire them into stations of nobility or politics or wizarding or whatever? Then send them to Castle Drachenfels, where they can all just have a very ignoble and terrible death. So yeah,
mega dungeons have kind of a legacy of being the last thing that your player characters are going to do in Dungeons and Dragons at the very least. I've played Under Mountain, which is really cool, but to second edition Dungeons and Dragons, so also player grinder, and the problem is that mega dungeons are very fun in concept, but kind of hard to then play them for players that enjoy role playing, because it's very much you enter a room, you experience some kind of traps of some kind of monster, and you face it, and then you move on to the next room. It's a little bit limited in scope, which is why I was so surprised by Gradient Descent.
Yeah. You reminded me that there's one other that I forgot it was a mega dungeon, because the GM removed the mega out of it. But right near the end of the second edition run of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, they released a campaign called The Thousand Thrones, which basically comes down to, what if somebody is this kid reborn, Sigmar reborn or whatever, let's find out. And you travel along with the retinue, following him to his destiny, and it ends with this mega dungeon of like 76 separate locations on top of an entire campaign that's all happened before. And when we got to it and finished it, Jim, who was our GM for that, he was like, "Oh, I'm just going to I cut this down. I cut this down to like 10 runes, the most interesting ones, because it was too much. We'd already been playing for half a year." And it's like, I think a mega dungeon, if it's done right, and like the Undercity in D&D feels very much like a mega dungeon in some ways. I think Out of the Abyss. I'm in an hour about whether I'm going to GM that at some point. But yeah, that's my main experience with them. It's interesting thinking how lethal Mothership is. Like, that's always the problem with mega dungeons, is reintroducing or introducing new characters. It's like, are they wandering in the dungeon? Do your players get to dip out of the dungeon and go back in again? It's always challenges.
that's the thing that I quite like. Is that there's this a side station called the Bell that is orbiting the dungeon itself, which is where people that want to go into the dungeon kind of stop to have a drink and then chat and recruit people to go back into it. And also the dungeon is dangerous, but it has some mechanics to make sure that players stick around, which is all that I'm going to say without spoiling some very cool aspects of it.
I have a very important question.
Yes.
For Fan,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned you're a problematic player. I'm very curious in what way.
Okay, so I prefer GMing because I like switching between characters and like describing the world and putting on a bunch of different voices and accents and like, imbuing a lot of personalities. So I tend as a player is I will have a concept for the character and it will be narrow and focused and it'll be like they do a thing, this is their thing. And if the GM isn't like amiable to that, isn't willing to let it happen, then it's best I just don't play in the campaign. For example, for one that like worked, we played Horus Heresy, 140k Horus Heresy, and I just wanted to play a ganger from Necromunda who like just prolifically stole everything despite being the part of a Inquisitor's retinue. And all I was interested in doing for that whole campaign was swindling as much money as I could and spending it on stuff for myself and robbing the rest of the party. And Jim was the GM and he knew that's what I'm like. And in that case, he was, yeah, no problem. And just kind of facilitated me until I robbed thousands and thousands of credits from everyone else, which I still don't understand how they didn't put it together where all the money was going. It was just disappearing and I was having better and better equipment and there was nobody challenged me. But a inverse version of that, again with Jim, is Jim wanted to run Pendragon, which I'm not a huge fan of Pendragon because it's the French Arthurian legends. I prefer the Brythonic Arthurian legends, but I won't get into that. I talk about it too much. Anyway, that is a generational role-playing game where you'll play knights, a lineage of knights, and I wanted to play the my concept was I wanted to play the orphan lords. So the entire lineage wasn't the standard lineage. Instead, when it was time, the current lord would go down to the nearest village, find an orphan, and raise them up as the next lord. And Jim was like, "You can't do that," and at that point I just went, fine, I'll just run this and I'll come back after you finished because I don't want to be playing with all of the courting rules and all that kind of stuff. I just want a more pure concept, and I thought it was cool. I found out years later from somebody else who runs it, they were like, yeah, that's like absolutely fine in the rules. It's still challenging, it's difficult. You might adopt someone and then they die during training. It's, it still all works. So it's that kind of thing. If I'm stubborn, I have my character and it'll have something odd or weird about it that I want to integrate into the game world, and if that doesn't fit the GM's vision, it's very difficult for me to change. But also, if I am within that, I tend to be quite good when it comes to improvising. Like, well, we're going to talk about this when I talk about In Other Waters, but I tend to try and use all the tools I've possibly got and all the tools the party have to come up with like solutions to things that don't require the GM to provide handles.
Mm-hmm. I'm very curious. Have you played Wanderhome?
I haven't, no.
And I'd be really curious to find out if that's something for you. I mean, it's without a GM, and the players collectively create the world and take turns voicing NPCs and such.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it now. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I've played some. In fact, I'm going to literally one. I've played some like solo RPGs, like 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, and the one I'm going to part of Tidebreak I'm going to talk about later includes a solo version. So yeah, I don't mind that. In fact, I'm just reading. I grew up reading books about Redwall from a quote on this, and that's immediately pushed it up the rankings for me because I love Redwall. Yeah. I'll have to bookmark this and have a proper look through it later.
I am on the lookout for people to play One at Home with, by the way.
Maybe we're going to chat about that. Yeah.
So, but I don't want to detract too much.
Yeah. No,
mega dungeons.
Yes.
Cool stuff.
Yep. Well, actually, I'd say as well, the Root role-playing game feels like a mega dungeon in many ways. Because it's a forest, but it's basically a collection of linked clearings that you travel from one to the next. And it's a closed system. You know, you don't leave the woodland.
Yeah, and then you are supposed to explore the same places and like kind of push your exploration multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you do stuff, things happen, a resolution occurs, you go away, maybe you come back later and you see how things have panned out, and inevitably there's some new pile of friction because Root has no good guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that could be. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It sounds fun, and this is part of why I'm really happy we're talking about role playing games, is because I'll get into it in my section, but it is my primary passion.
All right. Well, speaking of one end of Mothership, you played recently a very different kind of Mothership modules, right? Fan.
Yeah. We were going to do me last.
Oh, we were going to do you last. Okay.
Mothership sandwich.
Mothership sandwich.
Yeah.
Then, how about you, Cara? You've been
So
playing
yes. Currently, I'm engaged in 2 tabletop RPG groups. One I'm DMing. There we play Splittermond, a German tabletop RPG, which is kind of an offshoot of The Dark Eye. And and I'm playing in a Fabula Ultima group. But before that, I want to talk about a very special tabletop RPG supplement book, which I find really amazing. And most of you won't be able to do anything with it because it's strictly in German. And it's a very specific thing. For those of you who don't know, there is a German company called Blue Bricks. And Blue Bricks is a pretty amazing company. They sell brick build sets like Legos, except you may not call it Lego, or Lego will sue you for calling things that aren't Lego. Blue Bricks, this company, they sell from different companies the sets in Germany and Europe. And they design their own sets as well. They have their own product lines. And one of those product line is medieval sets. Their flagship set is a castle called Blaustein, Bluestone, because, you know, they are called Blue Bricks. It's a castle. The core set is like 5,250 pieces, and they have several expansions, and the castle is growing. And at some point I renamed my guest room Castle Bluestone Room, because it's a very prominent feature of the room. And they had a cooperation with the designers of The Dark Eye. They have released, I think, 3 sets, like one dragon and 2 buildings from the world of The Dark Eye. And recently they had a small convention where Ulysses Spiele, the publisher behind The Dark Eye, also had a booth. And at this booth, they sold a book for The Dark Eye called Das Erbe von Blaustein, The Heritage of Bluestone. And it's another cooperation between the 2 companies, except in the other direction. Whereas the previous corporations were Rubrics designing brick build sets in reference to The Dark Eye. Now, the authors of The Dark Eye wrote a book referencing rubric sets. So they basically designed a barony in the world where there is a town, village, around a castle called Bluestone, and all the buildings in this village are buildings that Bluebricks has created brick sets for, and they basically just created a setting around those buildings. They described them, how they were built, who lives there, in the stores, what are they selling, with the castle and the different expansions. They have this whole story when the castle was founded and who, when, did which additions to the castle, and a lore around some dwarf that was involved in creating the defenses, and I just love it. It's such a great idea. And the another great thing, the book is written in a way that you can easily adapt it to other systems. They start with some general knowledge about the world of the Dark Eye, but when you get to the part where the village and the buildings are described, it doesn't really matter which system you use. And so that's, I really love it. I think it's a great idea, and I hope to see more in this direction, because I actually have thought about in my group for battles to build the battlefield with bricks, and for now it's a little bit difficult because of money, but like this weekend we have a big battle, and I was looking into what do I need, and I noticed I'd have to buy more than 500 euros worth of bricks to build the temple the party is supposed to defend. So yeah, we'll use a drawn battle grid. But in the long run, maybe that's something I'll look more into, and possibly I have a village the party will visit at some point. That was the surprise topic. And now we get to Fabula Ultima, except if you have any questions.
No, but it does sound very cool, and I've seen like people do similar stuff with their own sort of collections of Legos and legally distinct Legos. So that's really sweet. It's definitely fun.
Yes. I always like mechanics like this that game modules like this that make other stuff that you own more valuable. If you have a lot of Legos, this is a great addition, because then it makes them feel a little bit like less like a paperweight.
Yeah. Both League of Dungeoneers and Dungeon Universalaris offer that kind of thing where they've got standees, but they're also like, well, if you want to use any kind of whatever you've got to represent these things, go ahead. Which I think that's cool.
There's only one small issue that I encountered, and I talked with one of the designers of Bluebricks about it. I know he's also an avid tabletop RPG fan. Usually in tabletop RPGs, if you use battle grids, you have like 1-inch grids. If you try to adapt that to brick build sets in the Lego size, 3 knobs is less than 1 inch, and 4 knobs is more than 1 inch. So you always have this issue: do you make it a little bit smaller, then you can't use regular miniatures because their bases are too large, or do you make it a little bit bigger, and then you use up a lot more space, and miniatures might be a little lost. But yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, that is tough. It's easier if you're just using bricks and then brick people.
Actually, they are in the process because for those of you who don't know, Lego is very adamant about what their rights are and what other people are not allowed to do. And one thing Lego thinks others are not allowed to do is produce figures, brick figures. And so several companies have tried, and Lego always sued them and won in some way, and achieved that they are not allowed to sell their figures in Europe anymore. And but now, because they have several lawsuits being done, there is a lot of reference as to what is not allowed to do, and a couple companies are now in the process of producing figures that seem to be legally fine. And Bluebricks is one of those, and they have started their own minifigure line. And so yeah, I mean, they have a pack with like 8 guards and knights in there, and one pack with 8 different townspeople. And so and I know from the video they are in the process of designing more specifically for these medieval sets. So maybe in a couple months the problem will be gone, because I can just use all these minifigures and don't need 3D printed tabletop figures anymore.
I didn't know about that. That's quite good news, actually.
Yeah. So, but coming to the other officially announced topic of Fabula Ultima, I try not to go too much into it, because for those of you who don't know, in our Patreon there's actually a review from Alessio about Fabula Ultima. It was posted on November 6th, 2023, so it's been a while. And yeah, but as I said, I'm playing in a group. We meet like once or twice per month online, and are currently level 22. And yeah, so I wanted to just share a bit of my experience with the game, and specifically where I might have a slightly different impression than Alessio, who very much likes, I assume still likes the game, and has a lot of praise for it. So in short, it's a JRPG made tabletop RPG. It has the declared goal to translate this feeling that you get from JRPG combat into a tabletop RPG, and does this by a very interesting class system. When you create a character, you start with level 5 and 2 or 3 classes. Each level translates to 1 skill point in one of the classes you have. And when you get 10 experience points, you level up, get 1 skill point you can put in one of your current classes. Each class can have up to 10 level in its own. So once you put 10 points into one class, it's mastered. You get a special elite skill for this class, and can continue leveling other classes. You are always allowed to have up to 3 non-mastered classes that you are currently leveling, and a theoretically unlimited amount of mastered classes, though the maximum level of the game is 50. So obviously you can't have more than 5 mastered classes, because then you're max level. And each class has a set number, few skills where you can put your points in. I think like 4 to 6 or 7 different skills. Some skills are stuff you put 1 point in, then you have it, and that's it. Other skills you can put multiple points in and improve them over time. And yeah, apart from that, you have 4 abilities or attributes: dexterity, insight, might, and willpower, which denote the dice you use. If you make any test, you pick 2 attributes, and they might be the same one. Like if you want to investigate something, it might be insight and insight, and you pick 2 dice fitting the attribute number. So for example, my character has insight 12, so if I would investigate something, I'd take 2d12 and roll them, and the GM sets a target number that you have to reach, basically. There are also open tests where the higher you roll, the better the result, especially in, for example, investigation tests. Maybe you notice one thing, but maybe there are 3 other things you could have also noticed if you rolled better. So yeah, that's basically the system. And what do I like about it? It's very streamlined combat. It's partly because when I compare it to other games like The Dark Eye, where you have a lot of different special maneuvers and modifications in situational modifiers and whatnot, you don't have that here to that degree. You have a set list of abilities from your classes you can use. Most of those abilities also feel very impactful. And the system is centered around villains. So you have these villains with special abilities, but always in a predictable frame. And so if you know, oh, that's a villain, then you already have an idea of, okay, how much health do they have? How many different abilities are they able to use and stuff like that. And yeah, so in that way, I think it fits this whole, hey, I'm playing a JRPG very well. With the class system, it also has a very nice sense of progression. By now, I really hate systems like in D&D, where you play for several sessions, get experience points, and then finally, okay, now I leveled up from 10 to 11, and now I sit down for 2 hours and figure out what I get new now. I like the gradual progression where you get experience points and can spend the experience points to get new stuff. And here you level up quite often. Regular rules say that you get 5 experience points automatically for each session, and you gain additional experience points for things that might happen, and you need 10 to level up. So at the slowest, you level up every 2 sessions, and leveling up is as simple as deciding which skill do I pick now. It's a thing of 5 minutes. You do it, and in the next session, you immediately notice the difference, that you now have a new thing you can do, or the one thing you did all the time is now noticeably better. And so I really like that. I don't like the lack of out of combat stuff. It's very focused on combat, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. if you're looking for like a tabletop RPG that feels more like a simulation, let's say, again, like the Dark Eye, where you have so many skills that aren't useful in combat, like architecture or mathematics or whatever, you won't find that in Fabula Ultima. There are some skills that can be used out of combat, but most skills are noticeably designed for combat. For example, one of the classes I have is the Tinkerer, where you would think, hey, there is so many things you could do there out of combat, but of the 5 different skills the Tinkerer has, 4 of those are specifically for combat, and one is a skill that improves the general ability of the Tinkerer to do projects, basically to craft. And so yeah, it's a combat class in the end, and that's the way with most classes. So in the beginning, when we started playing, I had this moment when we were out of combat and did things, and I was like, wait, but my character can't do anything. Yeah, all I have is my attributes, and then when I want to do something, the GM says, okay, yeah, let's pick those 2 attributes and you just roll. And that feels very limiting. But yeah, again, it's a combat system, and it does that very well.
I played a one shot of it at a convention a few years back. I think there was a Kickstarter for it, right? Yeah. I think just after the Kickstarter, while it was running. So maybe not with the full rules, but I remember that it had a very modular feeling. Like it kind of felt like a game that was trying to adapt JRPG, like almost 1-to-1 directly, and they were saying that there would be a lot of module, like that the game was made for people to add their own modules and stuff. Has there been any modules more geared towards the role-playing aspect or towards non-direct combat stuff, or is it always?
I honestly can't tell you.
Okay.
We are playing exclusively with the core rules, and I know there are these how do they call it? It's not setting books, atlases, for different fantasy types. Like they have one for high fantasy, one for techno fantasy, one for natural fantasy, and maybe there's stuff in there. The thing is, as far as I can tell, the only way to really include new things into the core system is to create new classes. And which then again would limit your abilities in combat. So you'd always have to decide, do I want to learn a new skill I can use in combat, or if I pick a class that's designed for role-playing, do I do that, but thereby not having as much options in combat anymore? Yeah, so I mean, again, it depends on what you're looking for. The combat is very fun, and we have a lot of fun in our group, and I mean, there are a lot of tabletop RPGs that don't use much rules, even in combat, but also outside of combat, and they work fine. I felt very confused by the discrepancy. Like, combat is there's so much going on and so much thought put into it and detail in there. And outside of combat, it's nothing basically, or almost nothing. There are a few things, but yeah. The other thing where I definitely disagree with Alessio, Alessio wrote that it's very much flexibility in character building. I like how it works. I like the progression. I don't feel you have very much flexibility. When I compare it to other games, for example, the one I'm DMing, you get experience points and you can spend them at any point to buy new abilities, to increase some stats or get a new mastery or learn a new spell or whatever. And you are completely free to do whatever you want, specialize your character in whatever way you want. In Fabula Ultima, when you level up, you get 1 point, which you can put in one of the 3 classes you haven't mastered yet. And that's it. If you already have 3 non-mastered classes and you notice, it would be really helpful for our group if someone, for example, learned to heal, you can't just learn to heal because you have to master one of your 3 non-mastered classes, so you can pick a new non-mastered class. And the flexibility inside one class is limited in sometimes. It's very different. Some classes have more flexibility, other classes have less. I know there are classes that would have potentially like 12 skill points in there and you have 10 to spend. You don't have much choice then where you spend them. And yeah, so for me, I didn't feel like in my classes it's more the question of in which order do I learn skills and not what skills I actually learn.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then one minor gripe. It's something where you can definitely have a lot of discussion about. I can see where they maybe are coming from. Abilities that ask you to describe what you're doing. For example, one of my classes is the Lore Master. The Lore Master is basically very good at investigating stuff. It's very important in combat because you can investigate an enemy and then you know their vulnerabilities or their resistances, so you know which damage type is needed and stuff like that. And for example, they have this ability Flash of Insight, where if you roll 13 or higher during an investigation check, you are allowed to ask the Game Master questions, up to skill level questions.
Okay.
And about the subject you investigated. You can ask them immediately or save them for later. When you ask a question, the Game Master has to answer truthfully, and you are supposed to describe your character's deductive process. I imagine the idea behind that is to get players to be more involved. Yeah, to not just say, "Hey, I want to know this, tell me," but think about, "Hey, what is my character actually doing?"
Yeah, just give me the answer as opposed to actually having to think about it. Yeah, okay.
But it leads to this uncomfortable position for me where sometimes I'm just not in the mood. Or sometimes I just don't have any ideas. And then suddenly I feel like the system is preventing me from using my character the way I want, because the player doesn't know how. And so I think this stuff is solved better by just a general disclaimer or advice at the beginning of a tabletop RPG, like, hey, involve your players, let them describe what and how they are doing things, and not add it to some abilities, not all of them. And that's basically my experience. Again, in general, I really love it. It's a lot of fun. I like the feeling of progression. I like the combat. There are some caveats, but looking forward to our next session.
Yeah, that's. I know that Audrey is currently playing the game. At the moment, and I think that she will be talking about her campaign about it at some point. I've only played one time the a little playtest for the game, but I do know the author of Fabula Ultima a little bit, because he has a Patreon. His name is Emmanuel Galetto. He has a Patreon, and he posted for a while. I was one of his Patreon subscriber, and he constantly posts different ideas and cool concepts for little games that he workshops, like little game jams. And he's someone that has some very fun ideas for different mechanics. I think I remember that he made a game that's basically trying to adapt the Persona series combat into a sort of card game tabletop RPG, mixing ideas. And if anything, what I will say is that if his ideas are not sometimes not fully cooked, like you said, there's maybe a little bit of a lack of role playing aspects, or maybe a lack of character development, they're always really good starting point to then build something on your own. And for like an imaginative GM, I think that everything that he makes is some pretty good base for it. And for something that is slightly relevant to the podcast, he was also the one that made what's the name of it? Was it Fleshscape or something like that? That was the RPG that was very inspired by Kingdom Death in terms of mood and in terms of looks and feels and ideas. And I think that it also used some terms that were kind of related to it. Yeah, quite a prolific developer. Yes, it's Fleshscape. I'll just post the title of it, and I think that you will see the general vibe of what he went with the artwork. That is a few years back now. All right. Yeah. Quite fun, Fabula Ultima. I have been curious about it for a while. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to it?
Nope, not really. That is for now all I have to say. I'm also looking forward to hearing what Audrey's experience with it is, or maybe even Alessius with some more experience. I think Alessio is the Emming group.
Ooh, that's possible. Well, then that concludes the salad and the meat of our mothership sandwich. And I think that we can then move on to the second slice of bread in this analogy.
A very soggy slice of bread. Very,
Exactly.
the wettest slice of bread you could possibly imagine. I am sat here throughout all of that. Pamshire has been a. I'm not going to use the words because she'll think I'm chiding her, but she has been a difficult individual, and she's now sat here trying to beg for either a carrot. Yeah, a carrot she wants. Yeah, and typically it's like it's my section, so you have to wait. Okay. All right. If there's barking, it's because she's gotten impatient with me. So yes, I'm going to essentially talk about two games, the video game and then the role-playing game that's set on it. But I'm not going to go too much into the details of the the video game because it's an experience. And again, with the role-playing game, I'm not really going to go into the details of the campaign because again, it's kind of experience. So. In Other Waters came out in April 2020. It's from Jump Over the Edge and published by Fellow Traveller. It's not quite a digital novel / walking sim. It's very unique. So the concept is it takes place on Gliese 667cc, which is a very important planet as far as human space exploration is concerned, because it's... So, Gliese 667 is a tri-star system, so it's got 3 stars, and Gliese 667c is the red dwarf star, so that's the first part of it, and then Gliese 667 big C, the little c is the planet, and this is the first... It's a super Earth, and it's the first planet we found that was in the habitable zone and possibly could have life on it. So that's why it's that planet selected, which is pretty cool. I'm going to refer to the planet as Gliese from now on, even though that's not its full title. It's just easier to deal with. So In Other Waters is set around this character called Dr. Ellery Vass, who is a xenobiologist employed by a interplanetary mining corporation. She arrives on Gliese looking for someone, and you don't play as her. Instead, you play the entire game as an artificial intelligence uploaded into her suit. She doesn't know how you got there, you don't know how you got there, and you have like zero direct interaction with the environment. I did have a picture, I'm going to grab it now. The interface is essentially like a topology map and a little bit of sonar. Here's a little picture of it. It is quite gorgeous. Wonderful. It's absolutely beautiful in a really unusual way. So you're looking at the environment in top down, and you're in charge of all of the suit's functions. So you're looking after its power, you're looking at its oxygen, you're choosing where to go, you're collecting the samples of various life and things like that. But it's all kind of... Your interaction with the world beyond this is all through Dr. Ellery's observations. So it's her writing, her documentation, her drawings that inform what the world is like for you. And even though you're quite detached from everything and there's not really a genuine sense of danger, this game does a great job of creating an alien environment that's very sort of terrifying at times. It's unnerving. And a big part of that is because, you know, if you have thalassophobia, you're not going to see any of the things in this, but you're going to have to go down very far. It's the map's divided up into 6 regions, and you start off in the central reef, which is quite sort of near the surface. It's not very deep. It's very kind of chill, and gradually you'll go deeper and deeper down the layers of the water environment, which you start off in the epipelagic and you go down, which is like down to 200 meters. Then you'll go to the mesopelagic, which is down to 1,000 meters. Then you've got the upper bathypelagic, which is down to 2,000 meters. The lower bathypelagic, which is down to 3,000 meters, and then the abyssal pelagic. So this goes down to like the abyssal plane. The whole story in that is exploring the world, trying to figure out what happened to this person Ellery Vass is looking for, figure out what's going on, and most significantly of all, why there is a planet full of life in a galaxy that's devoid of life, and the company that found this and set up, and you'll find their installations around the place, hasn't talked about it at all. Like, they've not mentioned it. So it is beautifully illustrated. It is gorgeous. I love the color scheme. The music is amazing. You can play through the whole thing in a few hours. You can 100% it all, although they don't have achievements, within a couple of extra hours of exploring around. You've played it as well, haven't you?
Yes, I have played it. I've really enjoyed it. I think that the writing is wonderful, and I think that the visuals of the games are just gorgeous. It's really, really fun to explore it because it feels like the I believe that it's a one-man team, or maybe there were 2 or 3 people. I know it's a very small development team, and they spent a lot of time working on the ecology of it, trying to think exactly how Gliese is going to feel, how every elements of its fauna and flora interacts with each other, and it all makes the game feel super super interesting because of that. I loved it.
Yeah. Little side note: the system is named after an astronomer, I think it is. So that's how we know how I know how to pronounce it. But yeah, it's so a video game is like, I think, for me, like a 9 out of 10 game. I played through it in 2020. I replayed through it before running this, and it was just as good. And normally I don't want to replay a game unless I'm trying to 100% achievements, or I really love the game. So this landed in the second category. So mini review, recommend. Never thought I would be talking about this game on the podcast, but it is a sweet game if you want a moving, touching narrative adventure with a sense of exploration, and you don't suffer from severe thalassophobia, because it probably will trigger you when you get to the abyssal plane if otherwise. So that brings me on to the role-playing game, which is titled In Other Waters Tidebreak, so I'm just going to call it Tidebreak. It was a Kickstarter. I came to find out about this via no pun included community, and I was like, my goodness, they did a role-playing game, and I picked it up just in PDF form afterwards, and I had it sitting around for, I don't know, a year or something, because it's a 2024 release. Not really sure what to do with it, and then I just decided to play the game a bit again, and went, you know what, I think there's something really special and unique here within the setting, within the experience and everything. So this is pretty much a kind of almost one-man job. When you go to like the credits, the writing, game design, graphic design and art is credited to Gareth Damian Martin plus Lone Archivist. The layout is credited to Lone Archivist. Then we've got Jared Crader did developmental and copy editing, and Lone Archivist did the publishing, and of course Jump Over the Edge owns the IP. So this is mostly the work of one person, with some assistants and some play testers and everything. And I want to like people to bear in mind, because I have some criticisms, but you got to take into account this is like a one-man job, and I'm still really enjoying a lot of what's going on with it. So concept of Tidebreak is it's set after the events of In Other Waters, and people have, like, across the galaxy have discovered, oh heck, we're not alone. Every other planet, every other planetoid, every other moon has been dead, but there's life here on this one place. And on top of that, Baikal, which is the company that was doing stuff on the planet first, is now in a lot of trouble because they concealed their discoveries from humanity as a whole. So the players will take the role of a team sent down by one of 3 different people. You can be sent down by Dr. Ellery Vass. You can be sent down, which she'd be asking you to find some specific things. I'm not going to go into spoilers. or you could be sent down by Clemens the Collector Koch, who is asking you to collect specimens for his menagerie, or the one I chose to, which is the Tokyo Institute of Xenobiology, are like, hey, finally we've got some xenobiology to look at, and they send a team out to collect data on the flora and fauna of the planet before laws come in to protect it. So in all cases, it's kind of like that Gold Rush experience, with like, the laws aren't in place yet, but I felt this one, like, I felt Dr. Alexis was a little too spoilery for me to set for people who hadn't played the video game in case they wanted to go and play it. But Dr. Iki and the Tokyo Institute of Xenobiology felt perfect, so that's what I chose for the guys to go in. The game is, now you've talked about it, kind of a mega dungeon. If I'm honest, it just kind of is.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's you have a 10 by 10 map which is broken apart into 5 zones, which are the Central Reef, the Bloom, the Dusk Slopes, the Filament Fields, and the Brine Pools. Brine Pools being the deepest section, and also the map has depth ratings, which is an interesting part of the game's mechanic. So players will start off, they have a base which is like pre-stocked with certain things for them. They'll each have their own diving suit, which is randomly determined, like, so everyone may have their own unique diving suit, which is kind of fun. And beyond that, they're sort of left to do whatever they want to. Now, the first thing that's a little bit of friction is Mothership has androids. Kind of a big point of In Other Waters is this AI that's turned up with Dr. Ellery Vass is like, it's not supposed to exist, and it's making independent thoughts of its own, and that's not what AI is doing for humans in the wider galaxy. So then there's a question of what are androids within this, and it's kind of, I felt like they glossed over it, so I ended up saying to my group, after this happened, this AI came out of it, and it sort of kind of caused a singularity event, and a load of previous robots and androids that were just kind of basic functioning. They would have programs of greeters or things like that. Now they developed not just sentience and sapience in order to explain there being androids, because my other option was to cut androids out and not put them in. And I was like, I kind of do want to have androids in. I think that's cool. So that was one of the points where I had to sort of smooth things over, because the book doesn't really go into it beyond saying, hey, you can play them. The other thing is, this one's on me. I sat down with the group at the start and I said, okay, the primary part of this, you're going to be collecting samples. So you need to be you need to find these creatures, you need to be good at approaching them, and you need to be good at collecting them. And I told them mechanically that means if you want to approach, you need good speed. Somebody who's got incredible control over their physical nature, so they can get to the sample without spooking it, without triggering it, if it's, causing whatever its defense mechanisms are to go off. That's important. And then you're going to need at least one person who's good at taking samples. So you're going to want at least 2 scientists, or 1 scientist and 1 android. My group promptly went scientist, android, which is actually turned out to be a nightmare, because 3 scientists are now overlapping on each other, and essentially 2 of them at any given time are useless. I should have said, take a teamster, take a soldier. I think, given this is Mothership, that's going to cause some problems when they start entering the sectors with more dangerous life forms in it. Because not everything... They've been, wandering around the Central Reef for a few sessions, which is... It's shallow, it's bright, the creatures there are playful, they're herbivores. The most dangerous thing you can run into is fungus that will blow you up. And it won't kill you in this, because, the suits are pretty durable. But yeah, so... The main loop of the game, which I think is super cool, is encountering these creatures and identifying them. So the game breaks apart into downtime, where you will do the usual de-stressing activities, or you might take some time to upgrade your suit or build some things, which is a problem my group's got that I'll get to. That, upgrading your suit requires you to find usable materials, debris, or even, if you're smart, scavenge bits of the base to upgrade your suits, which I've tried hinting at my group, you've got spare O2 tanks kicking around. You're going into a sector where oxygen's really difficult to get because it's full of cyanobacteria, and none of them have taken the hint, except for my partner, who is playing the android, and androids don't breathe, so that character Chalice doesn't give a hoot about that. In fact, Chalice is terrified of water, and the rest of the group are not doing anything to try and help her get into the water, and so they've lost their collection sampler. She's got 60 speed, so she's 2/3 of the time she successfully can approach specimens. So the past 2 sessions have been failed dive after failed dive because people are trying to do stuff their characters aren't built for. But that's not the fault of the setting. That's, as I say, it's kind of on me. I should have forced them to pick more specific on their roles. So on the dive section, what will happen is you'll start off by checking the sonar, and it'll ping, and it might show some motile life forms in certain sectors. And if they're in range, then the guys can go out and they can plot a route to get to it. And that involves picking the number of sectors and taking into account that every sector you move will cost 1 power and 1 oxygen. Most suits start with 8 power and 8 oxygen, so you could do a round trip of like 4 spaces out and 4 spaces back to begin with. But if you could have encounters along the way that can result in you having to spend extra oxygen or power, and searching sectors to find life can cost extra oxygen power as well. So this is massively on the players to plan their route, consider what happens if things go wrong, and make sure they've got everything they need to support each other and support the the tasks that are required. So that's the first thing I think is very important to kind of highlight, is if you're going to GM, really do make sure that your group has a Teamster for definite. Teamsters are the best at jury rigging and repairing. I've got 4 people who can't fix and upgrade suits, so it takes them days to get anything done on upgrading.
I can imagine how that would be a problem in a game that is where you are supposed to be kind of scrounging things around to try to push things further.
Yep, you're supposed to scavenge up samples after you've identified them all. Then you will go and start using them for their material properties to help deal with other problems. Yeah, it's really sweet, but it's just... It feels like everyone decided to build a comedic mess around character, except for one person, and that person is having a terrible time. And I'm kind of like, I don't think this is the fault of the setting. This is, as I say, I think this is on me. But the really cool stuff is, I think, this exploration where if the whole point here is to go out and you encounter a new life form and you get the first data point on it, which will tell you, for example, I'm just going to grab like this is a starting thing. So it's a signal stalk, and it's like part of this fungus that's the basis of all the life. And when you first encounter it, it says a tall amber-coloured fungal in caps, which means it's like a property stalk with a scattering of large bubbles clustered along its length. And you, as long as you get back to base without getting knocked out, you can take that and record that data point, and you get XP. And under the framework of the game, the characters will also get paid because they've successfully brought some data back. The second data point can only be achieved by successfully approaching the specimen with a speed check, and then the third data point can only be achieved by successfully completing a xenobiology role, which is an advanced skill that nobody chose to take. One of my players has just picked it up for this week. I'm very excited. They can finally do their job properly if they get their thing sorted. But once you've unlocked everything, you get like the full information. I've been going a little bit further with that. I have built, because we're playing this on play roll, I've built character sheets for every single one of the life forms in the game. So when they are encountered, I upload the sheet into there, and it's like as if there's an NPC sheet that they can see but they can't edit. And then as they find the info and they successfully fill in their tests, I add in the data points.
You can add the information. That's good.
Yeah. So they don't have to do lots and lots of writing. I can just cut and paste the text in. And that's the part that's like, despite all of the like current issues I'm having with the group parties construct and the concern I have about when they encounter a predator, you can't just take a sample from them. You've got to subdue them. If they have weaponry that they can defend themselves with, you've got to handle it. And they don't have anyone who can handle it. Despite all of that, they're having a whale of a time for the most part. Like, they're thrilled because it's suddenly a game where I'm barely present as there's no, they haven't encountered a single other living, talking being since they've been there, and they've been there for like a week. It's just them. So it's on them to role play, it's on them to set their objectives and chase around. And that's the one part where things are getting a little tricky, because this group has a tendency to like not turn to me and say, okay, Fen, we're doing this. And then I go, great, you do this. Instead, they just kind of go, I think we should do this, and then sort of trail off, and then one of them starts role-playing a bit, and they go in circles until somebody gets fed up and just rushes off on their own. And so it's frustrating, but part of the reason I picked this is to make them... I felt like I was driving the plot too often in other things. I was having to push them forwards to make things done, because they talk about all their options and then not pick any.
This seems like a good way to force the players to pick their own decisions, because if it's... Well, I've read through the Tidebreak book, but I've yet to play it with a proper gaming group. But it very much feels like the game where players have to constantly set their own objectives and trying to figure out where they want to go, what they want to explore, and this to be more of really an exploration-centric game, which was what initially drove me towards it, because it's very different from what Mothership usually does, but it's really but the world of Gliese is really, really fun to explore and to try to figure out the relationship between the different entities that you're going to interact with. And it's I can see that being extremely fun. I don't remember if it was with the with Tidebreaks or with the original game, because I backed both on Kickstarter. But there's also an art book for In Overwater that is wonderful, and I think that it would be a great extended material for the game.
I picked up. I have the art book. It's part of the video game. It's called a
study of
study of Gliese 667C. CC. It's really beautiful because it's written from the perspective of like scientists who've examined it. I think including Dr. Iki is one of them. So that's been really helpful and fun. Now, the one thing I've found a little frustrating is when you start going through the book, first of all, like, it's got random encounter tables for when you're exploring, stuff can happen.
Yeah.
They're only D10 tables, and that means, like, if players keep walking through the same sector over and over, it can become very repetitive quickly, so that's on the GM to add more, which I have to do, like, prepping of random encounters in advance and fill a few more out and everything, like, because otherwise, if I'm just rolling the dice and then, they could just have the same thing over and over. The other thing is, there's a standalone solo adventure called the Salerno Files.
That's what I wanted to ask also, if you played it.
I did. I had to play it because it's got better rules for how the long-range scanning suite works, and it's got better rules for going on. Like, the structure in here, I took a load of the rules from the Salerno Files and imported them into Tidebreak because they gave better structure for how to handle stuff. Like the layout of downtime actions is really nicely done. The structure of a dive is well put together. So in the solo, it'll be going on a dive. First of all, any motile creatures you placed during the last dive, you take them off because they move around. But any sessile creatures, so that's like plants, they stay in place. Then you choose whether you want to do a scan, and that's got like scan rolls to see if you can find any motile creatures to go and investigate. And then it also works through all of the steps of you travelling through a sector and gives you a nice breakdown. So I'm running that in the background when the characters are exploring, and this works much better. It's just interesting that these are not in the core rulebook, because it wasn't until I went back and went, all right, well, I'll play through the Salerno to get a bit of a better experience of what it's like, just playing through the mechanics and having a 1,000-year-old vampire type experience. But I've ended up bringing so much of this in because there's neat stuff, like there's a whole interlude section where things like a storm comes in, and that forces you to consider about what you're doing, where you're going. The base isn't particularly good in a storm, so you need to think about where you're going to leave it, and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. It also includes a bunch of objectives that I've started giving to the group in order that's for progressing the chapters, but it feels good to give them focus. So if I just get to them, so your tasks in chapter 1 are to establish a food source to build a garden. So you need to get 2 fungal samples and 1 oxygenating sample. So that's what I've ended up giving them as an objective, because they've been sort of flailing a bit. So now they decide, and I'll reward them once they successfully achieve at it. So that's been helpful. I wish it was all integrated a bit more, like they could have done with probably this Salerno campaign having a structured version for playing with multiple players, really. On everything else, the artwork is stunning. I use the artwork from the book, but also I use the diagrams that Ellery Vass sketched to add more to that. One of the characters has art, and so once they've gathered a sample, he'll spend time sketching it out, and if he passes his roll, he gets a little sketch as a reward. And I even put the full data logs into their files, so they have masses of more information about each creature, and that's been a big hit. So ultimately, this has been a lot of extra work. Like I even built the entire room on Playroll for us to play. So I've had to put a ton more work in than I normally would for something that's kind of really meant to be sort of pre-generated. But I think it's worth it, and I think even though the group's going through a slightly tough time right now because they've made some meme decisions and it's really biting them in the ass, I think it's going to be worth it, and I hope by the end of it they come out with more confidence of make a plan, follow the plan, don't expect the GM to pass time forward and have an NPC turn up to do stuff for you, which is just kind of where they're doldrum at the moment. So ultimately, this isn't expensive, and I think the fact that it is an exploration-based game where for the vast majority of it, combat isn't really on the table. It is more about interacting with these creatures, finding their properties, finding how you can interact them with other things, and the big thing would be it's got a massive crafting system, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And I keep telling my group, there's loads of crafting you can do, and nobody ever bothers with it because there's no Teamster. So that I think that's really exciting. I'm just hoping one of them, while they're leveling up, eventually goes, all right, I'll take mechanical repair and jury rigging because we need that, and then we can really start properly getting into it, because they just entered the bloom today, and they've discovered that
that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they're in a sector where oxygen requirements are double, and unless any of them make the connection that, hey, we've got oxygen tanks on board, we could increase our oxygen reserves by jury rigging these to our suits and have more oxygen, they're going to have a rough time with really short dives. And I pushed them out of the central reef by bringing a storm in, because otherwise they were just not going anywhere. They got the ability to move the base, and they're just dawdling around with it. So, also the this will mean something to you. They're now arrived in the same sector as the Rathis colony.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's
going
I'm
to be
hoping
some fun times.
that's going to be a big game-changing moment for them. That should be really exciting. I might let people know in the future how it goes, but I don't want to spoil too much on that. So anyway, that is in other waters. I don't think Mothership is the right system for what they wanted to do. Mechanically, a lot of it is okay, but it's very clear that Mothership's butting up against... Mothership wants a more gritty, pulpy kind of experience, and this almost feels like if you stripped all of the horror sections out of Call of Cthulhu, that system would do better. But the specific systems they created for how you handle the suits is amazing, and I do want to briefly talk about that before going on. So before we wrap up, so everybody has their own little dive suit, and there's 6 different types. Plus, you can do a modified vac suit. They have an armor rating, which usually starts at 4. A couple of them start at 6, and for every 4 points you have in your armor, you can go down 1 further depth rating. So if you have an armor of 8, you can go to depth rating 2 without suffering any problems. You can, in fact, go beyond your depth rating, but you take damage while doing so. So you can risk going into a heavier, a deeper area with more pressure if you want. You also get O2 and power reserves, which you deal with, and I found a really fun way that Playroll handles this. I'll pop this. So this is popped in the chat. I'll describe it for the listeners. They're pie charts, and the players can click on the
clocks,
clocks.
Blade in the Dark.
Yes. So they gradually click their oxygen away, and they watch it visually go down. Same with their power. And I've done the same thing with room for tracking samples and everything. So the big part of the sheet is literally just their dive suit is its own character, which is really fun. It's different to how it's done in physical. They have a sheet, but Playroll's not great for drawing in on your sheet, so I built my own thing. So that is it. That is Tidebreak. I think tentatively I can recommend it to experienced GMs or players GMs who are willing to put extra work in, and especially with a player base of groups. If you've got people who improvise, people who want to be imaginative and very creative, and they're like, what if I combine this and this? That's fantastic. As I said, my group is currently a little bit sort of lost on that kind of thing, and I'm hoping this changes it for them. We'll see. But on the whole, I do like this. For the price, I think it was fantastic. But it's not as good as the original video game for me.
Well, it is a stellar video game, so kind of hard to top.
Yeah, it is. It is.
All right. Well, I guess that's all the time that we have for this episode. You can catch us over at patreon.com/thelaststandee with 2E. So until next time, we have been The Last Standee. That's going to be goodbye from Cara.
So now, bye.
Goodbye from Fen.
Bon voyage.
And myself. And remember that the second E in Standee stands for dive.
Huh.